There's so much interference in this innate intelligence that we're getting sicker and sicker, mentally, physically, and spiritually. I'm not interested in the lies of mainstream media and the fear mongering. We have to step into a space of empowerment and education and realizing that we are all powerful.
Cyndi, welcome to
Well,
the
thanks,
podcast.
Guy. I'm looking forward to this.
Me too. I'm genuinely looking forward to this. You know, I feel blessed to have gotten to know you and Kim a little bit earlier this year from the retreat. And one thing that stood out for me as I got to know you a bit more, Cyndi, is that you're definitely somebody that is a bit of a go-getter. That doesn't rest. I can't imagine you lounging around watching Netflix all day or something like that. You know, there's a constant drive in you, and I mean that from the deepest compliment. You know. So I'm always curious, and I thought I'd start there today, is where does that hunger, that thirst for life and that thirst for knowledge and that quest come from with you? Because you're just so passionate about living, that's for sure.
Oh, I've never just ever asked me that question. I actually don't know. I guess I can only say that I was brought up that way. You know, my dad was a go-getter. He was a hiker. We had a bus in the 1960s. Dad had a bus and he put a bed in it and he called it a bed Ford. So he was doing things long before I think anybody else was really thinking about it. You know, now everyone's got a bus and everyone's got a caravan. Whereas, you know, he had this bed Ford. And I think it was because mum didn't want to go camping. She liked her luxury. So he put a bed in a bus and we all went camping in the bus. The only thing I can
Wow.
say was my family and my upbringing. And they were go-getters. You know, Dad was a Kiwi who went to America, met my mum. They came to Australia to live. They moved around. They settled in Bendigo. You know, I can only think that that was my upbringing because my brother's exactly the same. He's a world champion freestyle skier. He's a television presenter, a weatherman. You know, he's done the same thing. And my sister was the same. So I guess upbringing.
Yeah, it's a beautiful trait, right? It's amazing. I'm curious. I'm curious to know as well. You know, with your like I was on your website this morning, Cyndi, and it's remarkable the amount of information that you have on there, the amount of things that you're constantly putting out in the world. I mean, even back from my 180 nutrition days, I mean, I've been watching you from afar for a long time, and you're always at the forefront and constantly putting a message out there and constantly evolving that message as well, if that's fair to say. And it blows my mind that I guess what you've done, and I don't know if building an empire is the right word, because you're so passionate about one's health and putting this work out there, and I'm always fascinated to know, even where those aspects come from. Why health? Why this journey for you? What's that? Where did that
Yeah.
start? Or is that again from upbringing as
Yeah, it
well?
is. It actually is. So if I can go back to my parents, because I think that has been an incredible influence on me. So my mom was the oldest of 11 children. Her father was a corn farmer in Iowa, USA. There was a real love of farming by my grandfather who didn't agree with the chemical revolution. So he was a farmer in 1938 and 39 after my mum was born when they sprayed arsenic and lead on the cornfields across 14 states of the USA, which have absolutely made it toxic. And he was against that. He was also against DDT, which started in 1945. So he was a farmer that was out there saying, this new way of farming is going to be a problem in the future. And all the farmers said, hey,
Wow.
Vince, you know, this is the new way of farming. You got to do it. You got to get into it. And he ended up losing his farm for many reasons. And maybe we'll talk about that. But he ended up losing the farm, but had an incredible 2-acre plot. So 11 children, you can imagine. He had to feed them. Without a farm, he had to feed them. On that 2-acre plot was grains and corn, of course, and vegetables and fruit and goats and chickens. And he fed that family of 11. So that was my mum's side. And then my dad's side, he basically grew up in Kaikoura, New Zealand. He became a pharmacist. And after 6 years of pharmacy, he realized that he was killing people, not making them well. And he had this specific person who used to come in for Pepto-Bismol. And on this one, like about a month, he hadn't been coming in, or 2 months, and he saw him in the street and he said, why are you coming in for your Pepto-Bismol? And the guy said to him, oh, the quack up the road fixed me. And my dad's thinking, what fixes indigestion? And the quack up the road was a chiropractor. And so my dad went in his curiosity, he went and visited this man, quit pharmacy immediately. For 10 months, he and another friend worked as painters to make enough money to fly to Iowa, USA in 1956, I believe that was.
Wow.
Fly to Iowa, USA, where the only school of chiropractic was. And he learned the exact opposite from mechanistic healthcare to vitalistic healthcare. Met my mom, came to Australia, and that's how I was brought up. I was brought up on good food because my mother had had her father's influence, and my grandmother, she canned everything or, bottled everything. They had a cellar that had all the food they needed for the winter because it snows and there's no way you can grow food in the winter. So she had the upbringing of her mother and father. And then my father just said, unless it's a life-threatening situation, I will not be giving my children any medications whatsoever. So while everybody else was being vaccinated, and there was only, you walked to your vaccines back then, you were 5 or 6, we would sit in the classroom and not be vaccinated. If anybody was having, Bongello or antibiotics or Panadol, he said, your body needs to deal with it so that it can deal with the big things in life. Your body needs to deal with that fever so it can deal with the bigger inflammations in life. And that was the way we were brought up. And I'm 61 in 1 month. And I've never had an antibiotic, a Panadol, any form of medication whatsoever, have no chronic disease. I am the opposite to what the rest of the Australian population is basically like at the moment, which is 80% above my age group have chronic disease. So I'm in that little 20% because
80%.
80% have one or more chronic diseases over the age of 65. So they're a little bit older than me, but almost there. Our kids, 38 to 40% of our kids have chronic disease now. 2% of the population, when I was born I was born 1960. So in 1962, there was a census, and that census showed that between 2 and 4% of the whole population had a chronic disease. What's happened? You have to ask. So I guess my dad was so passionate about it. He's 93 next month. And, he's still passionate about this. He loves chiropractic. He is one of those guys that will go to his grave making sure he is making people well.
Yeah, amazing. And when did you, on your journey, decide in your path to start stepping out there yourself and putting a message out there? Because the one thing that's clear is that if we have a message, that especially that comes from the heart, and we want to share and we want to help others, quite often people just don't want to hear it, or we can get pushed back a lot from wanting to, I guess, create change. Like, we're so resistant to it as
Yeah.
well. So where did this? Did you always know you were going to be doing what you were
No,
doing?
no, not at all. I'm an adventurer. So like my dad and mum, we did lots of adventures. They took us around the world for 3 months when I was 14. So I traveled right through
Wow.
Asia, up through Pakistan, into England, across to Europe, over to America, Hawaii. Did we stop in Fiji? No, we ended up going Hawaii and straight home. So we took 3 months to do that. So I had adventure in my blood, and my dad, being an adventurer, also loved skiing. And so I thought, well, I'm going to go skiing and go to university at the same time, which you can't do in Australia. So I picked the University of Colorado in Boulder. 20 minutes was the nearest ski slope. And then I had Vail and Aspen. And being the only Aussie at the University of Colorado, I was invited to every condo on every mountain in Colorado. I had the best time. So I wanted to educate myself as well. So I thought, well, I'll go to university, and I did pre-med because I knew health was something that I wanted to do. My sister was doing chiropractic at Davenport, Iowa, at this stage, and I entered pre med. So I did a year of pre med, and in that year, you're allowed electives. And one of the electives I did was anthropology. Then I loved that so much, I did cultural anthropology. And at the end of the year, I thought, oh my gosh, it's food that has been the most important thing that has created the evolution of people. And it's food that will make us well. So, mum was a great cook, but we never really talked about nutrition or dietetics. It was just we all ate well. Mum would go to the local fruit and veggies. Um, Dad would have the egg man bring eggs in for a barter system for chiropractic. So we always had excellent food. Mum would buy half a cow. It's just the way we lived it. So at the end of that year, I decided that I wanted to be a dietitian. So I came back to Australia and started my Bachelor of Science majoring in nutrition, about to go do dietetics, finished my degree and went, oh, this is BS. Margarine, we didn't eat margarine throughout our anthropology or our evolution, and we didn't do that in cultural anthropology as well. And low fat, no, we ate fat. And less meat, no, we did that. Breakfast cereals, really? So to me, it was such a disconnect with what I had learned in my first year at university. So I thought, well, I couldn't go against the grain per se. I went back to university for 2 years, cut up cadavers. So did human anatomy, pathology, histology, embryology, parasitology, any ology you could do, I did. And after 6 years of university, I went, I know exactly what the human body needs. It needs real food. So that was the 1980s, and my mantra hasn't changed. All the ultra processed crap food out there, including the vegan food, the ultra processed meats and dairies, that so called meats and dairies, they're not going to heal us, make us well, give us the ingredients we need in order for this incredible innate intelligence in our body to do. So I guess that's how it all started. I also did a course after I finished at the University of Colorado. I loved hiking and I loved camping. And there was an opportunity to do a 2-month land management Western Wilderness outward bound course out of Crested Butte, Colorado. And that to me was like music to my ears, where I would be out of civilization. This is 1981. So I'd be out of civilization. I would be hiking through the mountains of Colorado. We even went into New Mexico and Arizona and learning about how to manage land, basically. And yeah,
Wow.
so I think all of that was an incredible grounding on the importance of nature, breath work. Um,
Mm.
I do that every day. I do breath work every day, 40 minutes every day. Um, meditation, time in nature, clean water, that that cultural anthropology and that anthropology that allowed us the ingredients we need in order to be the best human being that we can possibly be without interference. And this is what's happening at the moment is there's so much interference in this innate intelligence that we're getting sicker and sicker mentally, physically, and spiritually.
I know. I know. Wow. First of all, I got to say, when I'm listening to you, you make me want to just pack up my bags and go traveling right now. Obviously, I can't because I'm still in lockdown, but it's beautiful to hear, Cindy. It truly is, and it sounds like, um, well, it sounds like your parents are groovers. I mean, unbelievable to have that upbringing as well. Like truly, and second to that, and I see myself in some of the things that you spoke around because I was that guy that was so disconnected to my food source, to many things in my life, just from my cultural upbringing and just being out there oblivious to actually reconnecting back to that innate intelligence, those things that you speak of. And I guess that's why I'm so passionate now because having to go through my own 10 10 years of struggle to then 10 years of epiphanies to then like fully coming out the other side going, why aren't we looking at this? Why aren't we reconnecting back? Why aren't we nurturing our land? Why aren't we nurturing ourselves more and starting to unplug more and actually trusting that wisdom within us. And everything you just said then just resonates so much. I just wanted to say that as well. Do you like, because obviously we're in a very pivotal time in history right now. Do you think that are you optimistic for the future? Do you think it's going to encourage us to start connecting back to that innate wisdom and start trusting ourselves, our bodies, and the natural surroundings more?
In my way of thinking, guys, something had to happen. Otherwise, we would have continued on this trajectory, and more and more people would have been oblivious to what I believe the elite, and when I talk about the elite, I'm talking about chemical companies, pharmaceutical companies, agricultural companies. I actually believe that there's an awakening that we cannot continue down the road we're going. And that is that we are being absolutely killed by the amount of chemicals that are on our planet, in our food supply, on our cosmetics, on everything, like even on our clothes. Like if you look at the clothes and the chemicals the dyes that they put on our clothes, we have to be really careful of this. So I actually believe it's a coming back to home, a coming back to community. Because if we choose with our money not to support these big chemical companies, these big agricultural companies, and I'm talking about Bayer and Monsanto and Pfizer and all of and even big money. So I'm very much for going back to my local bank. So my co-op bank, Mullaney. So my farm is in Mullaney, and they have a wonderful bank up there that is, it's supported by the shareholders. It's not supported by one of the big four. So in my way of thinking, this is a coming home, a coming back to community. And I don't know how I get this across to people, but if we spend our money in our local community with our small farmers, our farmers markets, our organic suppliers, our small shops, our small butchers, if we start to give our money to these guys, our community will thrive. But not only will they thrive, but we as a human health species will thrive as well, as will all the animals. So this globalization that's trying to happen, I'm hoping it's pushing it the other way, that people become more community minded, and they're locking us up. So we have to be community minded. The thing is that you don't support McDonald's, Kentucky Fried Chicken. You don't support any of those guys that are creating ultra processed foods that are killing us and the planet. You don't support, I'm sorry, Coles and Woolworths anymore because they sell ultra processed foods. I have a tiny little organic shop that I go into. It's just packed jam and it's small, but that's who I'm supporting. I support my local butcher. I support my local farmers market. As much as possible,
Mm.
I am supporting my local community. And I have a barter system with my organic, and their name's Grub. They're Grub in Majimba, but I have a barter system with them. So I bring them in excess produce that I have from the farm. So all my oranges and lemons, and I never give them my apples. I never have enough apples. But peaches or nectarines, depending on the season. I just gave them all my lettuces. Anything that I've got extra of, I give to them, and we have a barter system. So she doesn't pay me. We just do a beautiful barter system. And this is what I think, if we get back to this, then we're not only helping our health, our family's health, but our community's health and our community's economy. It's simple. It's not hard.
I know, but again, I know it's not hard, but it's almost like we can't see the wood through the trees sometimes. And I still think back because I was that guy, honestly. Like it took a few knocks across the head, I think, for it to fully land for me to really step into it. And but for me, the biggest journey has been from my head to my heart and actually reconnecting to that, and then listening to that more so than what comes up in my mind. And but as I've trusted and grown that connection and lived from this place, it's allowed me to fully see things like the very things that you think about and come from that place. And sadly, I wasn't raised like that in culturally. I mean, there's no disconnect. Everything is all from the left minded. the egoic side, if you like, and we seem to be striving more and more, or reaching more for that, but it's a never ending fulfillment. There's no fulfillment in it. Even then when we get there and we set all these goals and achievements, it doesn't come back. And it's the very things that you speak about is what fills me up every day. It's actually being able to smile, go at a slower pace, and have a conversation, look somebody in the eye, and get to know thy neighbor, and be in a place where I'm
Nature.
around nature as well. And but I've had to, sadly, not sadly, but courageously, I think, make choices in my life that allowed me to slowly move in that direction when I said enough was enough. And from that, this something beautiful has blossomed, and that's what I'm certainly hoping for as well moving
So
forward.
you didn't have a world crisis
Um,
though, Guy. This is a world crisis.
no,
But
yes,
you
yeah,
op you awakened without that. You maybe had a self crisis or a family
mm,
crisis, but this is a world
yeah,
crisis, and I really believe it's an awakening. How long this is gonna take, I have no idea, and I'm not
mm,
impatient. I'm patient as much as I can possibly be. I have, my family around me, I have my farm, um, I have my community. I just feel that it is about not I don't watch any mainstream media, by the way. Someone will tell me if I need to do something or I'll see something. So
yeah,
I refuse to watch and listen. I don't my radio is not on. I'm listening to podcasts. If I'm at home, I'm usually listening to an audiobook or something like that. I'm not
mm,
interested in the lies of mainstream media and the fear mongering. Because what we have to do is we have to step out of that and we have to step into a space of empowerment and education and realizing that we are all powerful, but we must act. We can't just educate, we must act on what is needed in order for our community, our family, and ourselves to survive. And to me, it's all based around food, connection, breath work, meditation. And like if somebody asked me today, "Oh, do you do much TM, Cindy?" I went, "No, I only just do the 40 minutes of my breath work. You know, I can't get into the TM, even though TM is completely different, transcendental meditation. I find that yeah, my breath work is something I love, and I think be excited about life and don't get um, bogged down with the drama and the fear that's happening on the outside world. Because if you didn't have mainstream media on, which I don't, and you live in your own little bubble, you wouldn't know that the world was in an absolute crisis, or humanity, not the world, humanity is in an absolute crisis. So protect yourself. Yes, know what's happening. Yes, get out there and protest by all means. Yes, get out and say things, but also protect yourself from
mm.
the fear, I think is probably number one. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's massive. It's massive. If you don't build a fortress around your own unit, your own pod, I'm very careful as well with actually what gets in that, because if I can't be at my innate best, presenting myself moving forward into the world, then what good am I to
Exactly.
anyone? You know, and the information that slips in is very crucial. You know, I want to touch on, Cindy, if you don't mind, a little bit about adversity, because I think, through my podcast, I think we're over 170 interviews now, which still boggles my mind, um, coming in. And quite often, one thing I've found that a lot of people reach out to me for is um, taking inspiration from that. And I think there's a lot of adversity going through, in our own lives right now, and navigating through that and come out of the side, and creating meaning out of that, because quite often some of the difficult things in life we can look back upon with wisdom later, or the wisdom from it, but at the time it can feel like very difficulty. And I know for yourself that there's been adversity in your life as well, with your uncles, if I do believe, as well, in time. And I was wondering if you would mind just sharing a little bit about that, and what you've learned from that in reflection.
Yeah. So I said to you that my mum was the oldest of 11. And before
Mm,
her first brother was born, the arsenic and lead was being sprayed. Um, and so mum was born 1937, arsenic and lead was being sprayed 38, 39. In 1939, her first brother was born, and he was, they circumcised him at, I can't remember what time, but he kept bleeding. And so they did tests and they realized he had a disorder called hemophilia. So it's a bleeding disorder that if you cut yourself or bruise, you just keep bleeding. You've got no clotting factor. Factor 8 was what was missing with them or with him. And so, like the statistics on hemophilia is that, one in the family will have it. Well, mum had 7 brothers and 6 were given had hemophilia. So there was no hemophilia in our family, none, no, not sideways, upwards, nowhere until that uncle was born.
Wow.
So was it the arsenic and lead? I don't know. I have no idea. But was it that was causing the problem? So then 7 brothers, 6 all had hemophilia. So that's why my grandfather lost the farm. He had no boys to help him. That was why they had so many kids. Like my grandfather was one of 14. My grandmother was one of 14. And, they had kids to help them on the farm. They were German descent. Then a new drug came out. So if my uncles bleed, they used to go into hospital and they'd have to sit still for about 3 weeks until the bleeding stopped and they were okay. So when a new drug came out, which was called Cryl or Factor 8, they had a new lease on life. All they had to do was, Grandma was a nurse. All Grandma had to do was inject them with Factor 8, and the body would clot, or the blood would clot. But then because of Bayer, which I find interesting, Bayer has bought Monsanto, and we'll talk about that. But because Bayer knew there was something in the plasma which was making the Factor 8 for my uncles and all the people that had hemophilia in the country, in the US, they knew something was in it, but they didn't pull the product. And so every single one of my uncles, 2 wives and one of my cousins all contracted HIV. They were all put on a drug called AZT, which was a cancer drug that was killing people faster than it healed cancer. So they pulled it from the cancer drug repertoire and gave it to my uncles. And they all died of AZT. They all died from the drug AZT. They didn't die from AIDS. The drug gave them AIDS. And the main guy behind this was Fauci, who's the main guy behind what's happening now. So Fauci stopped research. He wanted the accolades of this research that Judy Mikovits was doing, Dr. Judy Mikovits was doing. And basically Fauci stopped this research about the AZT and about the virus and things like that, and basically killed my uncles and 2 of my aunts and one of my cousins. So we lost 8 family members as a result of Bayer not doing what they should have done and pulled the product long before. So that was, and I watched my mum, watch each one of her brothers pass away. And what's interesting, if you look at that whole family, we've had 2 with psychotic issues, one's committed suicide, one with Bud Chiari, that was an aunt. And my mum would have been 80, what would she have been, about 85 at this point. She died at 69 of lung cancer, never smoked. But I believe that was the DDT and maybe the grief and everything that happened. But I look at, what actually happened there and the amount of disease that my family had. And you can only put it down to the chemicals that were being sprayed in Iowa and all those things. So my mum had my sister in the USA. And my sister was born in 1959. My mum couldn't eat for those first 3 months of her pregnancy with my sister. So my mum would have been filled with arsenic or lead and DDT and any other chemicals that were being sprayed in the middle of the chemical revolution. So she would have been sprayed with all that. She would have had them in her fat cells because they're fat loving. So she would have dumped them onto my sister. And my sister was born small. She was always little. She was always sick. And she passed away from cancer in her 40s. She was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease called CREST, which was an acronym for 5 autoimmune diseases. Like she had, here am I, the best of health, because I was born 16 months after her. Mum had cleaned out, she had me, and then she had my brother. So my brother and my dad and I are in robust health, but my mum and my sister were always never in the robust of health. And both of those passed away 5 months apart from each other. I think my mum, she'd watched her her brothers pass away and her family pass away. And I think the last straw was her mother died in the February. And then my sister was diagnosed with esophageal cancer. And then I noticed my mum had the most beautiful feet, always wore the most beautiful shoes, and they had swollen like elephant feet. And I said, Mum, what's happening? So that's when we realized that she was sick and had lung cancer. And I think it was just too much for her. And she passed away before my sister, and then my sister passed away after that. So yeah, that was these were
Wow.
um I don't usually cry about this, but there's just so much happening in the world at the moment, that I find myself becoming more emotional than I've ever been before, because I'm pretty stoic and I'm pretty good at talking about this. But, losing those 2 to cancer, my first belief was, because this was back in 2006, so my first belief was, "Oh, what good am I? I'm a nutritionist and I couldn't even help him." But we do the best with the knowledge we've got at the time, and then as we do know better, we do better. And what I found amazing is that their deaths really opened up my spiritual world for me. So at first it was, I'm giving up nutrition. I'm no good as a nutritionist. What good am I? I couldn't even help them. Um, Maybe I'll do spiritual work. I really understand that now. I went to Brian Weiss. I've seen so many past lives and future lives. But what that gave me was, I think, peace, an incredible peace about all the tragedy that had happened before that. And then, I don't know, my husband joined me in my business. He said, "Why don't you create a documentary on your discovery about all these chemicals that you're learning about?" And it was doing that documentary that I realized it wasn't my fault my mum and sister died. It was the regulatory bodies in the US and Australia. It was their um, mismanagement of what was being passed and what was being sprayed on our foods, and what was allowed in our foods, and what was allowed on our skin, and what was allowed in agriculture. It was their misrepresentation of things being safe when they're not safe. And it was the companies. So I forgave myself, because you've got to forgive yourself at some point. So I forgave myself for that, and then thought, I have a lot of information here, a lot of stuff that people need to know. And I realized what I do is I learn for myself first, and then I pass that knowledge on. So I learn for myself, I do the best that I can for my health and my family's health. And then I go, this knowledge needs to be passed on. And so that's why I write. I write, an article a week, goes on my blog, or I write books. I did a documentary. I have a nutrition education program. So and tomorrow, I'm doing an all-day webinar with my graduates, teaching them how they can teach other people. Because if there's this incredible ripple effect that you have, Guy, and I have, then we can create the tsunami of changes, which is what I'm looking for. But we have to, I believe, get more and more people on board. More and more people need to know this, because so many people are suffering because they don't know this. They think that the grocery store with its ultra-processed foods, well, the government wouldn't put something in my food that was gonna make me sick. Wouldn't be allowed on the supermarket shelf if it was not good for my health. Surely that drug, is okay. They've okayed it for provisional approval, so people have this, stupid, I think it is, belief that our government is about our health. But I believe in the last 18 months that our government has shown what they really think about our health. And it is, when we know the ingredients of health and they don't allow us to have those ingredients in our health, then you can see where their narrative is. And it's not about our health. I've seen it for 40 years. I've been doing this 40 years. with the dietary guidelines, with the chemicals being sprayed on our food, with the synthetic biology that's allowed in our food that people don't even know is in their food. They just they believe that their
Mm.
food is safe and the government sanctioned it.
Yeah. Firstly, thank you for sharing that. Honestly, I I I didn't know the full story, Cyndi, and so thank you. The what I'm fascinated as well out of all that is the spawning of spiritual growth that you spoke of and speak of and have been leaning down. If you could encapsulate what that means to you in a nutshell, what would it be?
Before
What
my
does it mean to you?
Yeah, before my sister died, I don't know if I can do it in a little nutshell. It's going to be a bigger one. But before my sis-
Big nutshells are fine, mate. We got time.
so before my sister died, I remember us sitting on my veranda and I said to her, I said, "How do we know what happens when we die?" My sister was she was an incredible mind. Anyway, I said, "How do we know what happens when we die? What if we die and there's nothing?" And then she goes, and then I go, but what if we die and there's something? What is there? And she just goes, "Does it really matter, Cyndi? Does it really matter that you knowing right now when you die whether something's going to happen or not? It's not important right now. You have to stay in that present moment." So when she passed away, I saw her pass with incredible grace. I was there when she passed. She told jokes. She said to me, "I must have learned all my lessons. It's now time for me to go." Um, she fired her receptionist, saying she didn't need her anymore. Just these incredible things that she did. So I watched her pass with incredible grace and not scared at all. And she knew she was dying. She had about, I'd say, 12 hours where she knew that this was the end for her. Um, she came to me in a dream. Um, I would say 3 weeks after she passed away, within 3 weeks after she passed away, and we were having an argument. She was in the bed beside me, in a single bed, and I looked at her and I went, "I thought you died." And she said, "No, I didn't." I said, "I watched you die." It's like this
Right.
argument, and she goes, "No, Cyndi, we don't die." So it's almost like she answered my question to her in life. She answered it in my dream in her death. The very next day, I was with my daughters and they were wanting to look at surf gear. And I lost the plot in the surf shop, just started to cry. They pulled me out of the surf shop. And right next to it was a spiritual shop. And I walked into the spiritual shop and I went beeline to a bookshop, pulled the book out, the book's part of it, pulled this book out, looked at it, read the back and thought, no, no. And I put it back. I got home and a girlfriend said, "I have a gift for you." And it was that book.
Wow.
Yeah, it was that book. And it was called Many Lives, Many Masters, by Brian Weiss. So I read every book on the subject. I read Journey of the Soul, Souls of the Souls. I read every book I could possibly read on the topic. And I felt like my sister pushed me towards that. And so now I live, like, even with all this happening in the world, I kind of go, well, I know what happens when I go. I know I've seen my future lives. I've seen my past lives. And when I was at your Live and Flow and we did that incredible sound and breath healing, oh my gosh, I think I said it. You guys asked, what was it like? I went, best ride of my life, best ride. I went through from, thousands of years ago right to the future. And it was just like this gallop through time. It was like, I get goosebumps thinking about it. It was just absolutely incredible. So
Amazing.
people have been put into my lives. You, Matt Omo, the two of you together, have been put into my life to increase my spiritual understanding. And even though I don't talk about it, except now, but I don't talk about it I talk nutrition, I talk health. It has been a way of um, understanding that I've put myself on this planet at this time for a reason. And I either can stay quiet or I can make a noise and help other souls reach whatever it is that they need to reach in order to not fear what is happening at the moment, to find health, to find once you find health, I think your mind becomes really clear. You haven't got a foggy brain and you're not having depressed thoughts. I'm listening to a book at the moment and it's by a woman who's depressed. And I'm listening to her thoughts and I'm thinking, I've never thought that way. I've never had those thoughts. But it's interesting listening to her because when we get our physical body well, our mental thoughts become more positive. And so my drive is to get people to get as healthy as they can so that they now have the time to be nice to themselves. And as Kim Morrison would say, have self-love. And with that, you just emanate it. You just kind of go, this is a great world. This is a great planet. There's so much to do. Like I might be stuck in Queensland. I know you're stuck in New South Wales, but I might be stuck in Queensland and not be able to see my brother and my father and my niece and my nephew. But I got a whole world out there that I can hike. That's just an hour from my place, and I can disappear for 3 days and nobody knows where I am. So that's the way I look at it.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, that's a beautiful nutshell. Thank you. And it is right. Oh my God, I'm just cheering on with every word you're saying right now, Cyndi. Honestly, like, I think about it like because I'm 20 minutes north of Byron Bay, and I'm a guy from Wales that you know grew up near coal mines in the valleys, and I think of as tough as it is, how many things I get to be grateful for each day and focus on those things that fill me up. And one aspect of it is, like you say, what we eat, what we do, how we live supports our mental well-being so much, and it's so crucial. I'm curious to know as well what's 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 next for you, because your path has been forever moving, adapting, growing, and you've got to this point now, I guess, in your life, and it's like, where are you just one day at a time now, or there's still aspects you want to explore, or
I want to put more education on my education platform. So I have a registered training organisation and I really want to add more to that. Like I've really kept it at nutrition, but now I want to really expand with the registered training organisation, teaching people other aspects of health and life. So that's number one. I'm doing that. My farm continues to grow and adapt. Like I do regen farming, holistic farming. We're doing natural sequence farming. We do syntropic farming. So that's been an incredible journey of 6 years of growing food,
wow.
understanding how we do that. So I'm in the middle of building a shed at the moment, which will become an education centre, not only for farming matters, such as all the ones that I've just talked about, those 4 aspects of it. So I'm doing that. I'm regenerating my riparian area. So I have a waterway. I'm at a watershed. So I'm at the top of a watershed. So anything that comes off my land is as clean and as crystal clear. So I'm cleaning up the riparian area and regenerating that. I want to be a matriarch. I want to be a matriarch of my family. I've got grandbabies. I've got my first one arrived the 5th of the 5th this year in dramatic style, but that's another amazing story that I can tell another time. And I have my next one arriving in about 6 weeks. So to me, this is my life now, to look after my family, to make sure that they are safe, to leave the world in a better place for them to live in. I do worry that where my little sage Grace will be she's my age in 60 years. But I'll just make sure that everything's set up so that when I leave this planet, she knows where to go. I say to her, I see her every day. I say to her, I'm going to teach you gardening and I'm going to teach you how to grow food and we're going to learn how to butcher meat and we're going to learn how to grow chickens and eggs and she, she has no idea what I'm saying. But I just think these skills
No.
that I was taught, that you weren't taught, Guy, that you've had to learn now as parents, and I know you're a parent, as parents, it is the most important thing we do as grandmothers, grandfathers, as parents. We have to teach these kids life skills, not maths. Maths is important and English is important, but not all the other crap. Like I homeschooled my kids because I couldn't stand the education rhetoric. It was ugh, it's just like back in the 90s, I was ready to just slaughter the whole lot of the teachers that um, this whole thing that's happening in education, I wanted to educate my kids and teach them, what was important in life. And I got pretty incredible kids that haven't gone by the wayside in any way. Two having babies, and the other one's about to move to Barcelona
Mm.
to go to
Wow.
university. Yep, she leaves on the October 7th, so she's about to go to Barcelona and live her life. She's single, and I said, I don't know why you're staying here, honey. Go and see the world and go educate yourself and be amongst people that are doing incredible things. And it's the university she's going to is she's very excited. Yeah.
Yeah, how brilliant. How brilliant. Yeah. Yeah, look, it's funny, like thinking about like Ava now is, I think 14 months, 14 and a half months. And there's just part of me that's so grateful that I've been on my own journey first before becoming a dad. And I know it's hindsight's a wonderful thing. And I'm sure if I had it 10 years ago, it would be, it is what it is. But there's just a part of me that's very grateful to, I guess, come to conclusions within my own life first and be able to do my best to impart that wisdom for her on her own little soul journey as she grows. Anyway,
Mm.
that's for sure.
Yeah.
I
That awakening is
I
so
got
important. So
pardon.
yeah.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. I got one last question for you, Cyndi, before we wrap it up. And I ask everyone this on the show, but essentially is with everything we've covered today, what would you like to leave our listeners to ponder on?
That you are all powerful, that by spending your money within your local community, we can change the world. I guess that's it. Eat real food. Eat real food. But I really believe that
Go on.
you are all
Yeah.
powerful. You just have to find your power. And number one, how you spend your money is incredibly powerful.
Yeah, totally. As I love Bruce Lipton said a quote on my show a couple of months back, and it stuck with me ever since. He said, "Knowledge is power, but knowledge of self is self-empowerment." And as we get to know ourselves more, I think we can start making more conscious choices moving forward.
Yeah, that is a good.
Cyndi,
Mhm.
yeah, I just want to thank you. It's not often I get teared up on my show, and you're an incredible woman. You're an incredible advocate, and you're insanely inspiring, and you're certainly an inspiration for me. And I'm just grateful to have started and gotten to know you. And thank you for coming on my show today. It's deeply appreciated. And I can tell you now, anyone listening to that will be leaving this today feeling inspired. So thank you.
Thank you. I feel very honored to be on your show. Thank you.
Thank you, Cyndi.